Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access, bringing you the latest on the Matt LaFleur contract negotiation, I guess you could say. We've got a few more details that's been kind of uncovered in the last 24 hours. As we were on our live stream last night, there were reports coming in, people posting in the comments that there was comments made by Rob Demovsky yesterday on ESPN Radio. We're going to talk about that and what those mean, and trying to kind of, pull it back layer by layer. What's the holdup on the Matt LaFleur contract? Will it get done today? It sounds like it will get done either today or tomorrow, although we'll continue to dive into all the details, get you the latest on that. We'll also talk about the coaching carousel on the backside of this show and what it means to Jeff Hafley and that trickle-down effect throughout the Packers organization. How many assistants are we going to lose in that regard as well? Before we get into it, if you would do that YouTube stuff for me, hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning in to PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your morning. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you, talking Packers on a daily basis. So if you're looking for that type of content, make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you never miss out on a future live show. I see the chat already on fire. You bunch of degenerates. I love this crew. I swear, man. Y'all crack me up. So appreciate everybody jumping in here and joining the conversation this morning. We got people joining on X as well. If you guys are tuned in on X and you want to see the conversation in YouTube, just jump onto YouTube and find the show there. You can find the link to my profile as well. It's a lot easier to be a part of the conversation as you can actually see the YouTube comments on there. You cannot see those while watching live on X, but if you're comfortable watching on X, do your thing. All right. Let's waste no time, man. Let's get into it. The latest developments in the Matt LaFleur contract extension. Guys, we got a lot of stuff to cover this offseason, and it's happening in rapid fashion in terms of the offseason schedule kind of unfolding before our eyes. Like I said last night, we got the college all-star games that we're going to cover. That's coming up here in just a couple of weeks. Before that, you got to make decisions on re-signing players. We got potential cuts / restructure talk to get into, the details of the salary cap. We covered that on this show as well. But before that, we got to get through all this coaching stuff, right? So you got to get the coaching staff in place, the general manager in place. Some people are going, we got Goody. We do have Goody, you're right. But is there going to be changes there, right? Are there going to be changes within the front office structure? There's a lot of things that are coming into play. So let's just jump right into it. I want to give a shout out to Carson Caldwell. He put this tweet out last night at some point, or yesterday at some point, that talks about the Rob Demovsky comment that said talks have progressed where it would be surprising at this point if Matt LaFleur is not the coach. Okay, is not the coach, isn't the coach. So again, Rob Demovsky, office right there in Lambeau Field. He's around this 24/7, right? He's saying that it would be surprising at this point if the deal doesn't get done. Now, we've kind of come a long way from the loud minority of the fan base screaming, fire LaFleur, fire LaFleur. We've done poll question after poll question after poll question. The only poll question that had Matt LaFleur not being the head coach was one I put up where I asked the fans, hey, which would you rather have? If you had to keep one, you got to fire the other, Brian Gutekunst or Matt LaFleur. They said they would keep Brian Gutekunst and fire Matt LaFleur. That's the only – other than that, every single poll question we've done, Matt LaFleur has led. I've thrown multiple coaches in there. I've done I've done just a do you want him fired? And then, of course, Bill Huber did a huge poll question last night, got like 15,000 votes, I think. And it was unanimous that they want Matt LaFleur back. Fans want Matt LaFleur back. So I know there's going to be some people in the comments – typically is, where they'll say, you guys are stupid. That's just stupid bringing Matt LaFleur back. That's cool. That's your opinion, and that's awesome. Nobody's going to judge you for that here. Just don't get in here and pretend like you're smarter than the other large majority of the fan base, right? I kind of look at things like I guess democracy is the right word. I hate using any kind of political terms with the way our government's structured on both sides of the aisle. That's a topic for a different day. But it's just, let's see what the fan base as a whole thinks, right? That's kind of how I look at things in that regard. Now, the big news here for me is there structure change coming? Now, some people may not understand this. I think the majority of the people do. There used to be an old structure, okay? When Bob Harlan brung in Ron Wolf to be the general manager in the 90s, he gave him full say over the team, meaning he hires the head coach, he signs the players, he is the boss. So Bob Harlan handling the business side of things, Ron Wolf handling everything football operations. Okay, that used to be the old way to do stuff. Obviously, it worked, right? And so as it trickled down through the years, obviously Ted Thompson ends up taking over a little later. And with Ted Thompson taking over, he hires Mike McCarthy. That structure was still in place. Now, when Mark Murphy made the change it was right around the time he made the change to Matt LaFleur, and obviously Ted Thompson, because of health reasons, had to step down. Rest in peace, Ted Thompson, one of my favorite general managers of all time. Thought he was an amazing person, an amazing general manager. Got us a Super Bowl. So when Mark Murphy made that switch to Goody, they said they wanted to remove the silos. Okay. And here was the problem with that. Throughout the Mike McCarthy era, what you had was the general manager signing players and not communicating completely with the head coach on those signings, right? So as they were approaching it that way, what ends up happening is there start to become this division in-house, right? Like, I personally don't like the idea that a general manager signs a player without talking to the coach. Not that the coach can tell him no, but hey, what do you think about this player? Let's get on the same page here, right? Like, can you utilize this player? Here's the value I see in this player. Do you see the same value? Do you think there's a more important position, a more important archetype of a player that would better benefit your program? Like, explain to me, what do you think about this situation? It got to the point where that wasn't even happening, where Mike McCarthy was finding out at press conferences from the media when they signed somebody, like, in season. So I don't like the way that was operating, right? However, we make Mark Murphy makes the change to where, okay, here's how this is going to work. I'm going to oversee everything, which the president should, whether you agree with that or not. The president of an organization should kind of be, you've got to have somebody to have final say in case there's pushback in different directions. So what he does is he creates a different system where it's okay. It's going to be me meeting with Matt LaFleur, who is not above or below the general manager, Brian Gutekunst, who's not above or below the head coach, and Russ Ball, who's not above or below either of those two, right? So Russ Ball handling the cap management, Goody handling all the transactions in terms of the players and the roster you're putting together, Matt LaFleur coaching the team. But they would meet consistently on a regular basis and kind of talk things through. To me, that's the best. I think that's the best option. Well, you get to the point now where this report comes out. All right. And I know it's a long-winded to say it, and thank you guys for staying with me on this. I think it's important to kind of lay out the foundation, how everything's happened. Because in the past, people will go, well, Brian Gutekunst ought to fire Matt LaFleur. He doesn't have the power to do that. That's not how it's structured. That might be changing. Let me explain. Rob Domofsky from ESPN said this yesterday on the radio. He said, I was told that Ed Policy, this is an exact quote, I typed it out myself. I was told that Ed Policy would prefer to go back to the old way with the GM having power over the head coach. And the problem is, do you extend Goody and give him that power before you extend LaFleur? That could also be a part of the holdup here. Now, with Rob reporting that, he didn't say this is definitely what it is. He's saying that's what he was told. Okay, so someone within the building had communicated with Rob Domofsky of ESPN that Ed Policy would prefer to go back to, hey, let's make the general manager completely in charge over the head coach. Maybe LaFleur's giving a little pushback there. That could be the case, but hear me out. It could also be, Goody's on a one-year deal. So maybe they're trying to get an extension done for Goody, and that's gone unreported, right? And once they get Goody's done, then Matt LaFleur's will fall in place. Maybe Matt LaFleur doesn't want that structure. Me personally, if I'm a head coach, I wouldn't want that structure. I wouldn't want the structure that the general manager is, he's not in all the meetings with us. He's not at every single practice. He's not game planning for, the upcoming game. He's not doing, he doesn't know exactly what we need, right? And you guys may disagree. You may want it to go back to the old way. It obviously worked for Ron Wolf, right? It worked for the Packers in 2010. They got a Super Bowl. But then you start to have that division in-house, right? So maybe it's something that, a head coach and a general manager relationship just runs its course sooner or later. Now, there are some people in the fan base that I think the majority, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I think the majority of the fan base approves of how Brian Gutekunst has been general manager of the Packers. I personally, I don't think he should be fired, but I do think he's made mistakes. Like, for example, you guys know if you watch this show, and I'm just a fan, I'm not an expert, I'm not an insider. You guys know this. I'm giving you my fan perspective. When I look at this team every single year, I go, okay, we're marching out the youngest roster in the league again. That automatically puts our back against the wall. You know how I'm waiting for someone to show me where a team that had the youngest roster in the league won the Super Bowl. It may have happened. No one's ever presented that to me. Okay. And the reason I point that out is you're trying to make have a historical feat here by winning a Super Bowl with the youngest roster in the league. Don't that feel like the chips are kind of stacked against you a little bit, And Jason Wilde done a great job pointing this out yesterday on his show. He didn't come out and say it. So, take this. This is my interpretation of what he said. I think this is what he meant. He said, here we go again. And I think what he meant there was, you guys remember when Aaron Rodgers was complaining about how Brian Gutekunst was doing business? Okay. So now we're to the point where it's like, okay, is Matt LaFleur kind of getting fed? Is Matt LaFleur pushing back a little bit like, hey, man, can we get a couple more veterans in here? Right? I mean, this is before Aaron Rodgers complained about this. Go back to 2019, right? And it was reported that the front office, i.e., from everything I uncovered, it was Russ Ball that declined the funds to hire Darren Rizzi as the special teams coordinator because he was too expensive. All right. That's the guy Matt LaFleur wanted. Now, you guys know 2019, 2020, 2021, what kept us from winning what kept us from making it to the Super Bowl? You guys remember the blocked punt in the NFC Championship that got returned for a touchdown, right? Everything in between, special team gaffe after special team gaffe. I know our special teams aren't great right now, but they are light years better than they were from 2019 to 2022. That's why I'm like, okay, if you got a better option than Rich Bisaccia, go get him. But please don't take me back to 19 through 22. That sucked. That sucked bad. Well, we couldn't get a hold down. It was just block kick after block kick, block punt after block punt. It was just one thing after another, right? And I know personnel's changed since then, so maybe that fixed the problem. Only time will tell. But, this year would suggest it didn't. But so you got the organization preventing Matt LaFleur from having the special teams coordinator he wanted. So they wait 3 years, and then you go and hire the most expensive one you could find, and that's Rich Bisaccia. I think we would all agree that hasn't panned out great, right? It definitely hasn't, we haven't been top 5 in special teams. It improved the issue, but it's not the home run hire, right? So you've got the organization kind of getting in the way, right, from what the coach is wanting to do. So the coach back then was not allowed to pick a special teams coordinator, and now we might go back to now the coach doesn't have equal say in anything, and the general manager is just his boss. That's tough for me, man. That's tough. And, recently, Brian Gutekunst, his recent 2 free agents he signed, Nate Hobbs, Aaron Banks. I think we would all agree, hopefully they improve in year 2, but as we sit here right now, nobody can say those were great signings, right? When you look at the draft class, Matthew Golden's going to be a stud, and Andy Herman did a great job putting a tweet out yesterday. Like, people pretend like Matthew Golden wasn't used at all this year. I think he had the second most snaps on the team at wide receiver, only behind Romeo Doubs, if I remember correctly. So they actually utilized them more than rookies usually get used, as a receiver. If you'll remember back to the Devontae Adams days and things like that. But with all that being said, you kind of get to the point for me where it's like somehow Brian Gutekunst is just untouchable and Matt LaFleur's on the hot seat. Now, again, that's a loud minority that's put him on the hot seat. It's funny, too, watching all the talking heads kind of come to realize, oh, wow, I thought everybody wanted him fired. Yeah, because you hear from the loudest ones. That's why it's important to throw those poll questions up, right? So with all that being said, for me, and this right here, I'm gonna address this real quick. This has been a common one, Reginald. So this isn't a shot at you. This is everybody. And this is just my perspective. I could be wrong. This is my fan perspective. Matthew Golden wasn't used correctly. How so? I always ask people that. How was he not used correctly? I watched him run a climb route on a slot cross concept, and as soon as the play started to break down, he turned it in, and maybe there was a choice attached. We don't know that. We're not in the meetings. If there's a choice attached, he ran the wrong choice, but he breaks off his route and runs it right into Christian Watson down the seam and almost gets Christian Watson blown up. That's a rookie mistake. It's going to happen, right? So to pretend like, not that you're pretending like, that's probably a little harsh, for people to just assume, well, he wasn't used right, he wasn't used right, he wasn't used right, because we've seen him in the playoff game. Yeah, he's as ready today as he's been all year long. Like, we've been leading up to this. You go earlier in the year, I'll take it back to, I think it was the last Bears game in a regular season. People said this is ridiculous that they won't get him involved. He got 3 targets, had 1 catch for 8 yards. Well, he's a speed demon and he needs to go deep. I can show you clip after clip where they took shots to him down the field early in the season and they couldn't connect. Now, if you say it's Jordan Love, okay, that's cool. I'm watching the ball hit him in the hands as he's laying out to try to catch it. Did he track it right? I don't know. We could break it down by the millisecond if you want. But the reality is he played a lot of football. And, I would love to compare like the snaps and the production to like a Luther Burden or whatever. But Matthew Golden, could he have been used more? Yes. Could he have been used better? Absolutely. You can look back on any season and find a particular snap here or there and go, man, that would have loved him on this route right there. Of course, because you know what the defense ran after the play, right? Like, there's a lot of that comes into play as well. Yeah, as Nick McSwain said, it's pointed out time and time again, he was running wrong routes from time to time. We're not in here dogging Matthew Golden. I think Matthew Golden's going to be a stud, dude. 70.5 as a rookie, and had it played his best football in the most meaningful game there at the end. That's what we've seen in college. It's all over our scouting report that we put up here on Patreon, our Patreon channel. You can see it. He plays his best football in the biggest games. That's a great plus, right? But the reality is he was making mistakes. He was. And you couldn't get the run game going, right? So now you're trying to press into the pass a little bit more, although there's some fans that think Matt LaFleur is too conservative. The studies showed that he was the most unpredictable play caller in the National Football League this year, which goes against what those people that don't like Matt LaFleur were saying. And on top of that, the people who say he was conservative, he actually threw the ball 10 times to 4 runs on the first 4 drives of the second half. If you want to know why we lost the game and couldn't get the offense going in the second half as good as the first, we were being too aggressive. So, and again, that doesn't make the call right, but it's like we all get caught up in our own, well, I heard this podcaster say that, I heard that podcaster say this, therefore it's true. That's why I think it's really, really important to break the tape down yourself, dive in, look at all the facts, look at all the analytics, look at the tape, try to understand try to understand the concept, because we'll never understand the concept fully. We're not in the meeting room, right? We're not on the sideline where they make adjustments on the fly. There may be a case where it is a slot cross concept call. And if you're wondering what that is, it's the 2 receiver running a climb and the 1 running a dig. So it's essentially a climb washing out with a dig on the backside. You got 2 windows of opportunity on each of those routes, right? Well, they may have been on the sideline and be like, hey, man, they're really pinching me outside leverage or inside leverage on the climb. I'm going to turn it into more of a post and you hit me on the back shoulder. Those little adjustments happen, right? So we can just kind of guess as to what the calls actually are and try to make sense of it, right? So with all that being said, again, I think this is a huge, huge topic here, and it's probably what's holding up this contract a little bit. I think it'll get done, but, time will tell. And there were some other people chiming in yesterday. Brian Balaga over on the Wildy and Tausch show, they asked him, all right, man, Ed Policy comes to you and says, what should we do about Matt LaFleur? He said, quote, if it were me, I would tell Ed Policy to extend him. That was former Packers offensive lineman Brian Balaga on Matt LaFleur with Wildy and Tausch earlier yesterday. So Brian Balaga chiming in, Matt LaFleur needs to stay. It seems like the large majority of former players, former coaches around the league, as Adam Schefter said, people around the league see Matt LaFleur as a top 5 head coach. Whether you agree with that or not, I don't know. Top 5, I don't see Matt LaFleur as a top 3 head coach, right? Top 5, I can see. Top 10, 100% he's a top 10 coach. So now the reality is, how do you replace a top 10 coach with someone better? John Harbaugh is not a top 10 coach. I mean, there's nobody on the face of the planet, including Jesus himself, that could convince me John Harbaugh is a top 10 coach. I mean, you look, he had a 2-time MVP quarterback and couldn't do anything with it in the playoffs. Well, same thing applies to Matt LaFleur. Touche. Matt LaFleur made it to the NFC Championship. What was it, twice? Right? And again, why didn't he get over the hump? Go back and watch the tape. You're going to want to throw up on your shoes, but go back and watch the special teams get absolutely gashed over and over and over. Big returns, punts blocked, the whole 9 yards, right? Aaron Rodgers losing his mind like, geez, oh, Pete, we finally get the defense in a decent spot, and now the special teams is blowing up. And then you find out that in 2019, we were declined funds to hire the best candidate to be coordinator, the one who's the special teams coordinator in Denver right now, and Darren Rizzi. So again, just wanted to highlight what he said. Now, again, going back to the fans, and again, the final poll question before we switch gears into another topic here. Bill Huber, so he put this tweet out yesterday. It's been updated since then, I think, to 15,000 votes, but the most recent one I got was 13,997 votes. Congratulations, you were hired as the Packers president. What's your plan? Fire LaFleur, fire Goody, fire both, keep both, and pray for health. 69.4% of the fan base said keep both and pray for health. Only 17% of the fan base said fire Matt LaFleur. 9.1% said fire both. Scrap the whole damn thing. I know we're in a 3-year Super Bowl window, or we're in year 2 of a 3-year Super Bowl window. We had 16 people go on IR, whatever the number ended up being at the end of the year. Got completely decimated with injuries. You got the youngest roster in the league, but you know what? Blow the whole thing up. That's wild to me. I respect the opinion, but I do try to understand where people are coming from, and that one just doesn't. Man, that doesn't jive with me for sure. So I see the super chats, guys. Thank you so much. We'll hit those in just a second. So again, pretty much 70% of the fan base is saying, no, we want to keep them both. We got to stay healthy, right? Now, again, why can't we stay healthy? It's a training staff. We changed the training staff. So why can't we stay healthy? Well, we got the youngest roster in the league. They should be able to stay healthy. Really? Is that real? I mean, the Chicago Bears, the big knock on them this offseason was they went out and revamped their offensive line with veterans. They're healthy. You know? How come ours didn't stay healthy? There's one common thing involved in all of these decisions, and it's how we're picking players. It's the general manager. And I'm not saying he should be fired, but boy, oh boy, as Jason Wilde, I thought, said very, very well, everybody just descends upon Matt LaFleur like it's his fault. It's his fault. The chips are stacked against you with the youngest roster in the league. You can't stay healthy, right? So who has say in both of those? Matt LaFleur doesn't have say in the practice workload. That's all collectively bargained with the union. You have no say there, right? So maybe it's the type of players we're drafting. Maybe we're going for those athletic freaks all the time. You know, we always talk about the RAS and the other thing too. You guys know we call him Goody DiCaprio on this show. Why? Because some players are just too old. You know, it's so rare that he'll go out and get a player that's over the age of 30 or older, right? Okay, well, you can do that and your roster stays young, but what's the downside to that? Because there's a positive and a negative to every decision you make. I don't care what it is. Football, business, life. You make a decision, there's probably a pro and a con attached, and it's important to look at both of them, right? When you keep your roster young, what's the pro? Well, we got a bunch of upside. We don't know how good this team can be. We got to tap into that potential, right? Let me give you an example. You drafted Eric Stokes. Eric Stokes had a horrible injury. He wasn't completely healthy when he came back. We all agreed last year, look, I always say I want everybody back for the right price. I want all of these guys back, get them in camp, and then, all right, here's the best 53. Let's break, and we'll keep this guy, let this guy go, right? Eric Stokes didn't break the bank in free agency. Now, I wasn't standing on the table. I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. I was not standing on the table go, we need to bring back Eric Stokes. We need to bring back Eric Stokes. If you can get him for a minimum, why not give him another shot, right? But if he asks for anything other than a minimum, or maybe, you know, if you get to the 3 to 4 million range, okay, whatever, you're going, why the hell are you talking about Eric Stokes, Clayton? Because he had a hell of a year. Go look at the numbers. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Wow. First year he leaves Green Bay. Now, it'd be easy to go, well, Jeff Hafley didn't know how to use him. Come on. Jeff Hafley's a good coach, right? But again, youngest roster, all kinds of potential. And then you let a guy go right as he hits his peak. so we can stay young again? At some point, man, you got to turn the page. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just, and I'm kind of thinking out loud here, and maybe the majority disagree with me, but that's how I feel about it, man. I don't know. You can't have both, right? You can't sit here and be over the moon happy about having the youngest roster in the league and not acknowledge the negative aspects that come with it, right? And again, this is Monday morning quarterback in 101, right? It is, but that's what we do here, man. We talk ball all the time. We're going to get to another topic here in a minute and what it means for Jeff Hafley in terms of the coaching carousel as we had the first domino fall. We'll talk about that in a second, and we'll talk about how it's going to trickle down into the coordinators as well. Let me hit these super chats real quick. Mike Witt with the super. Thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate you. It's been 4 days since the game, and I am indifferent about Matt LaFleur. I just don't want to come off as rewarding what happened in that second half Saturday. Completely agree, Mike. That going into halftime, it was like, I remember thinking going into halftime, all right, boys, we got to come out and we got to make sure they do not do what they do best, which is, that come from behind victory they had all year. Cardiac Caleb. Jeff Hafley, we got to make sure we've got the best game plan put together. They come out and they just smoke our defense in the second half, right? So this is what Jason Wilde was talking about too. I'm indifferent about Matt LaFleur. Why is Hafley not being mentioned? And I don't know what the excuse is. I don't know how people see that. And again, I'm not saying Goody should be fired. I'm not saying Hafley should be fired. I'm not saying LaFleur should be. I think they should all be back. I think that we were dealt a crappy hand. First of all, you got to get the roster. We got to add some veterans to this roster. We need a few more veterans. Okay. We got to make that happen. You can't go into next year with the youngest roster again and expect different results. It is, I know everybody, I cringe when I hear people say, the definition of insanity, but it's true, right? It's doing the same thing over and over and over and then going, why did we have the same result? You're being insane. You're expecting something unrealistic based off what you continue to do, right? So why did they collapse in the second half? Well, first of all, the offense scored 27 points in that game. Not that Mike's trying to do this or anybody else. There's not a fan on the face of this big ball of mud that's spinning through space that could convince me that 27 points is not good enough to win a ball game. I'm sorry. If your defense is giving up 28 points, I'm not gonna put that loss on the offense. Well, you need to protect the ball. Stop being reckless. They did not turn the ball over at all. They protected the football. Won the turnover differential 2-0. Okay. You won the middle 8. What about what they did in the crucial moments? You won the middle 8, 7-0. The chances of winning that game with those two key statistics is something like, I'm telling you right now, +2 turnover and the middle 8, you're probably in the 96th percentile. Well, how did Matt LaFleur manage to lose that game? Your defense, excuse my language, shit the bed. That's what happened. But it all falls at Matt LaFleur's feet. I don't see it that way, man. I don't. It's, the fact that we, didn't have the proper amount of players going out on defense, on special teams, right? Well, that's Matt LaFleur's fault. He's the head coach. Well, we got a lot of penalties. That's Matt LaFleur's fault. He's not coaching them up right. We had 6 penalties for whatever it was, 75 yards or 65 yards, whatever it ended up being. All of these things, it's easy to just say, that's the head coach's fault. That's the head coach's fault. That's the head coach's fault. But I'm looking at it from a different lens going, that sounds like the youngest roster in the league to me. Why can't they get it done? Jacob was asking us in the text thread. He was laughing about the postgame show because he was texting me going, what is happening? Why is this happening? Blah, blah, blah. We need to change. What do you need to change? He didn't have an answer. This isn't a shot at Jacob. Hey, hell, I'm looking at it going, these guys are not good enough to get it done in the second half. They made an adjustment, and our defense cannot respond quick enough. Not that Hafley didn't try to play man and zone. He tried both, right? Well, what happened, Clayton? The players on the field couldn't get it done in the second half on defense. Why? Oh, I don't know. What's a negative to having a young roster? The negative of having a young roster is inexperience in the playoffs and being able to win those big games, being able to play your best in the most crucial moments, right? It's why I put it more on Goody and more on Hafley. The defense collapsed. Okay, well, Hafley's No longer got Edgerrin Cooper. He doesn't have Michael Parsons. He doesn't have Devontae Wyatt, but we're the youngest team in the league. We should be able to stay healthy, right? Wrong. Okay, so the DBs are getting burned in the passing game down the stretch. Who are your defensive backs? Keyshawn Nixon, an undrafted free agent. Carrington Valentine, a 7th-round pick. Those are your corners. Who made the decision on those corners? Your general manager. But it's Matt LaFleur's fault? I don't know, man. I just can't get on board with it. So what Mike's saying here, though, about, it comes off as rewarding what happened in that second half Saturday, I agree with you, but for different reasons. The way I'm taking it, Mike, is you're rewarding Matt LaFleur for what happened in the second half. We're going to reward Goody for marching out the youngest roster in the league again, and drafting / signing players that can't stay healthy. Like, I don't know, man. We want to get to the same place, Mike. I think we got 2 different routes, right, that we're getting there. And again, I don't want to fire Goody. I want to make that very clear. People will take that the wrong way. But boy, it's all just kind of falling at the feet of LaFleur, and that's wild. Thank you for the super, Mike. I appreciate you, buddy. Another Mike in here, Mike Z with the super. What's the relationship between Goody and Matt LaFleur? This is a massive question. When rubber meets the road, this is what makes it break us. Makes it or breaks us, in my opinion. We call this alignment, right? I've heard Bill Walsh talked about it. Everybody in the building has to be aligned. And that's why I was so anti-fire at Matt LaFleur, is like, okay, well, you got to scrap the whole thing because you're going to lose the team now. Well, what do you mean by that? Oh, I don't know. Jordan Love said he wanted Matt LaFleur back. Josh Jacobs said he wanted Matt LaFleur back. Micah Parsons said he's one of the reasons he came here in the first place. And who was the other one? Josh Jacobs, Matt LaFleur, or Josh Jacobs, Jordan Love, Micah Parsons, and Tucker Kraft, who was he having a hell of a year. Gosh, he was that. And that's another thing about Matt. The team finished 5th in passing this year in yards per pass attempt. And he did it without Tucker Kraft. You could tell breaking camp, this offense was designed to run through Tucker Kraft, at least until Christian Watson got back. He didn't have Jaden Reed from week 2 till when, right? You had to go through that big chunk. You didn't have Christian Watson until early November, late October, or early November. Josh Jacobs was hurt for the last 6 weeks of the season. And Matt LaFleur still put together a product on the field where you scored 27 points in a playoff game. And on top of that, you finished 5th in passing in terms of yards per pass attempt. Jordan Love took another step forward. Definitely a top 5 quarterback. Many people see Jordan Love as a top 3 quarterback now. I think he's top 5, and he's got the opportunity to really break into that elite class this year. And it killed me too, Mike, watching Jordan Love at the end of that game, walking off the field, and Rasheed Walker kind of tried to console him, and he was just like, he wouldn't even make eye contact with Sheed, and he was just – I loved that response from Jordan. The look in his eyes was like, this blank ain't happening next year. It's not happening next year. I ain't going to do it. I love that. I think you're going to see him take another step in leadership and kind of take the reins a little bit more. You get Tucker Kraft back. You get Micah Parsons back. You get Devontae Wyatt back. Obviously, Edgerrin Cooper will be healthy. Him going out in that playoff game really, really sucked. We'll see what happens with Quay. We kind of talked about that. If you guys missed that, you can watch the video. It's on the channel. We kind of broke down his value. Emilio and Tim, I feel comfortable saying they want him back. Me and Jacob were more like, man, if you can get him back for $5 million, yeah, but at $9 million, I'd rather kind of turn the page, try to find something else, go in a different direction. But yeah, in terms of the relationship between Goody and LaFleur, it's a huge question, Mike. It's a huge question. And here's the other thing too. If Ed Policy goes to Goody and says, hey, I'm thinking about going back to the old structure, right, of you being Matt's boss, what's Goody's response? If maybe Goody's response is, if you're asking my opinion, Ed, I don't think that's a good idea. I think we should keep it the way it is. Or is his opinion, yep, I think that's the move. And now he descends upon Matt LaFleur, you know what I mean? And Matt LaFleur kind of feels a little pressure to whatnot. Again, this is just based off going off what Rob Domofsky's comment. Somebody in the building told him that's what Ed Policy wants to do is go back to the old structure. Now, maybe Goody wouldn't be like that. Maybe here's the thing too, right? You're asking what's a relationship like between him and Goody, Mike. A reality is maybe the relationship would be, or the response that Goody would have to Ed Policy saying that maybe it would be, yeah, I'm okay with that. And I think Matt's the guy for the job. Maybe that's the case too. Maybe they're really, really close, right? Because again, the decision to not pay Darren Rizzi back in 2019 had nothing to do with Goody. It was Russ Ball and Mark Murphy from everything I've uncovered. Right. So thank you for the super, Mike. Appreciate you, buddy. Reggie with the super. Good to see you, bud. Appreciate you. Did you see James Jones saying he would love to come back to be a receivers coach for the Packers once his kids get a little older? I didn't see that. You got to be a little bit careful with former players coming back being a position coach, in my opinion. But James Jones was definitely an overachiever, right? And I think overachiever is a pretty good pedigree to have as a coach. If you're asking would I be okay with it, I'm open to anything, man. I'm open to anything. Anything to improve the team. That's the frustrating part for me is like Coach Butkus. I don't know, man. I can't. The meme that everybody used, what do you do here exactly? Right? It's like, well, I coach the offensive line. What's been the weak spot for the last 3 years? Offensive line. Well, we're trying to patch it together with bad players. We're not spending money there. You kidding me? Elton Jenkins is $24.8 million against the cap this year. All right. That's a lot of money. Aaron Banks, average annual value, obviously the full contract, I should say, $77 million. Essentially, Aaron Banks is 24.8 against the cap this year. Right. Well, maybe we missed on Aaron Banks. I agree. Looks like we might have. We'll find out if he stays on the roster this year. You got to lower that cap number if he stays. You can only free up $4 million if you cut him. That's not a ton of money, right? You're basically saying, okay, we just wasted $27 million on that signing. We basically, if you cut him outright, it will have been, I think somebody said yesterday, you would have paid him 1 year for $27 million. That's essentially what it comes down to. That's Brian Gutekunst's decision, right? Okay, well, no, I think he's a good player. Goody hit on that. We're not utilizing him, right? Okay, cool. Who's coaching him? It's Butkus. That falls at one of those two guys. That doesn't fall on Matt LaFleur. Brian Balaga had an awesome they had a conversation with Brian Balaga yesterday on Wildy and Tausch, and he brung up that Homer was saying, Matt LaFleur didn't make any adjustments. Matt LaFleur didn't make any adjustments, right? And to the protection, that's why the protection broke down. It falls at Matt LaFleur's feet. And Brian Balaga said, how many protections do you think we got? And he called out jet. He called out scat. He called out, scat protection, jet protection. Like, there's only like 5 or 6 protections, Homer. Like, these guys have got to be able to block. If they can't run that protection, that's on them. That's not on the head coach, right? And if the argument is, well, that's not on Coach Butkus either, okay, well, it falls more at his feet than anyone else if they can't pick up a simple protection. And that's what Brian Balaga was saying. That's not Clayton. That's a former offensive lineman that came out and said they should be able to pick up that protection. He watched the tape. He watches the tape, and he goes, yeah, this is on the O-line. They got to be able to pick up that protection. If you can't pick up that protection, wrong guys are in the room. So that's kind of his say there. But in terms of James Jones, I'm not opposed to it, but what coaching experience does he have, right? So I would rather bring in coaches that have been around longer rather than less. That's just me. If you want to go a younger direction, I get it, but I want a dude who's got a huge coaching resume. Put it this way, I guess, Reggie, I don't want to test it out whether James Jones can be a coach or not, when the real bullets are flying. That makes sense. That would be my only pushback. But James Jones, man, overachiever his entire career, hell of a football player, great team guy, tough as nails. Love that pedigree, obviously. Thank you for the Superman. Mike Witt with the super chat. Thank you so much. He said, Hafley's not getting heat Saturday because they built that defense around one player, and that player blew out his knee in Denver. Plus, 52-25 played absolutely horrible the last month. Okay, 52-25. Let's talk about it. As bad as Rashawn Gary supposedly played, I want to pull it up. I want to pull up the NFL Pro. Probably shouldn't do this on the fly, but I don't want to give misinformation here. Keyshawn Nixon's an undrafted free agent. And I want to say this, Mike. If the defense of Jeff Hafley is, well, you built the defense around one player and he blew up his knee, he blew out his knee, that's not a good thing that you built the defense around one player. Me personally. That would be like saying we built the entire offense around Christian Watson. Well, let's go back. We built the offense around Tucker Kraft, right? You look at the first quarter of the season, I think we would all agree it was running through Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft blew out his knee. What happened to the offense? They went out and scored 27 points in that same game, in the playoff game. They adjusted. The running game was non-existent this year, right? 2 reasons. The offensive line played like cheeks. They run blocked like cheeks. And Josh Jacobs, the last 6 weeks of the season, was injured, right? And they were just trying to patch that together. What did Matt LaFleur do? He went out and put the 5th best passing offense together. And Jordan Love, propped Jordan Love up to MVP status, MVP caliber. That's the adjustment he made. What adjustment did Hafley make? Like when I read that, and I could be in the minority here, when I read that, I don't look at that and go, yeah, you're right, man. Micah Parsons blew out his knee. We built the defense around him. That's not a good thing if that was the case. I don't think they built it completely around him. They liked the Joker 1 looks and they started moving him around. Yeah, that's true. But like we said, as soon as he went out, you got to go back to what you did last year now with simulated pressure. I feel like we blitzed a little more than I would have wanted to see personally. That would have been my answer. Let me look at this real quick on NFL Pro. I want to see who led the team in statistics there. Trying to think of the best way to look at this. Probably shouldn't do this on the fly, but you guys are firing super chats. And if you're tuning in for the latest news on the Matt LaFleur coaching information and everything, that's on the front side of this video. You can just rewind right back and watch it. We're kind of in the back side of the show now and just taking super chats and hanging out with the guys, hanging out here with Mike Witt and the boys and talking ball. So I wanted to look at what Gary did in terms of that game against the Bears real quick. So if I go to Rashawn Gary, well, first of all, if I go back here in terms of, I should probably just put it on the screen. Let me do it. Let me pop this up on the screen for you guys and gals. That way you can see what I'm looking at as well. Sometimes this stuff can get a little bit wonky too. I know we're back to blaming Rashawn Gary again. And again, I think there's a good chance Rashawn Gary won't be here next year, to be honest with you. I think that, people were saying this 2 and 3 years ago. We need to get rid of Rashawn Gary. We need to get rid of Rashawn Gary. And the cap hits were significantly lower. Now it's blimping, right? We're to the point now where he's pretty much I think he's all but gone, or he's got to redo his contract. So when we look at stops here, and I should probably go this route, actually. Let me go filtered by the team here. Okay. So we're going to go Packers team, and we're going to look at the defensive line group. And this does not include Micah. They got him listed as a backer, so keep that in mind. Micah's probably leading in all these categories, right? Absolutely dominant there in that regard. First of all, snap count. Rob Domofsky tweeted something out yesterday in terms of snap count. Micah Parsons led the way with 68%. Now, obviously, he missed the last portion of the season. He's out. Rashawn Gary had the second most snaps of any defensive lineman. So I know there was an idea painted that Rashawn Gary was getting less snaps than Enagbare and these guys. That was not true. Rashawn Gary was second in snaps is what it ended up being. But let's look at sacks for the team. Rashawn Gary led the Packers in sacks with 7.5, other than Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons with 12.5, what he finished with, right? So Rashawn Gary had the most production in terms of sacks this season. Well, I'm talking about the second half of the season. I got you. I'm just going off of the full season here. If you want to say he was cheeks in the second half, I can't break those numbers down specifically. You can go do that. That's totally cool, right? 7.5 sacks. You go quarterback pressure rate. Brenton Cox Jr. led the way with 14.3, but he only had 42 rushes. So if you did qualified defenders only, that removes our boy Brenton Cox Jr., and Rashawn Gary led the team with 12.1. You add those qualified, or you remove the qualified defender tab there. And again, quarterback pressure percentage, Brenton Cox Jr. with 14%, Rashawn Gary with 12, and Lucas Van Ness with 11. So Rashawn Gary led your team, your defensive line room with quarterback pressures. If you say a minimum of 50 pass rushes, Rashawn Gary had 387 pass rushes. So he was your most effective pass rusher, other than Brenton Cox Jr., who only had 42 pass rushes. So he led you in sacks. He led you in quarterback pressure percentage. Let's go to stops. Defensive line, run stops. Kobe Wooden led the way with 35. Guys, I don't think that's being talked about enough because PFF is making it sound as if Kobe Wooden was a horrible football player. I actually like the way Kobe Wooden played our nose. He played nose, shade, one, right? That's what he played in the middle. And the ideal scenario is Devontae Wyatt being on the opposite side. Now, people will see the sack total and go, well, Clayton, Devontae Wyatt, was injured. That's why he didn't have more sacks than Gary. Could be the case. He may have passed Gary up in sacks. That's totally doable, right? But when you go quarterback pressure percentage, Devontae Wyatt was 7.7% quarterback pressure rate. 7.7 from a 3-tech. That's not good enough from your 3-tech. I'm sorry, it's just not. Again, I like that they bringing him back. The defense was better when he was in there. Stats aren't everything, but when you break down the numbers, that's where it's at. So again, of your edge defensive room, Rashawn Gary had 34 run stops on 220 run D snaps. Again, I think Gary may be done as a Green Bay Packer. And I'm okay. If Gary wants to play at $28 million this year against the cap, and our question is, do you cut Gary and free up $11 million, or do you keep him? I want to do a restructure to lower the cap number and keep him potentially. But if he's not willing to do that, and he's not willing to take a pay cut along with that, I'm probably moving on and freeing up the $11 million more to prevent the progress from stopping with Lucas Van Ness, Baron Sorrell, and Colin Oliver than it is just about the money. You can make the money work if you need to. But this idea that Rashawn Gary was a bad football player, when you look at the numbers and you remove the emotion and you remove all of the talk on social media that anytime anything goes wrong on defense, it comes down to Gary's at fault, it's Gary's fault, it's Gary's fault. When you remove all that and you removed everybody's names and you looked at PFF grade, they said Gary finished somewhere like in the 65 range, right? 65 to 70. At one point in the year, he was like at a 73, a 74. I think he finished the year around 65. Okay. That's not a horrible football player. It's not. You grade out in the mid 60s, you're kind of average across the league. You get in the 70s, you're in the upper echelon. You get in the 80s, wow, you're great. And of course, you get in the upper 80s and 90s, you're considered elite. Well, if you don't like PFF, again, quarterback pressure percentage, he led everybody, all the edge rushers on the team. He had our highest quarterback pressure percentage. He led us in sacks, other than Micah Parsons. Again, Micah Parsons being the outlier. So he wasn't a bad football player. His run stops, he had 34 run stops. The closest edge defender to him there is Kingsley Naibari with 25. And again, keep in mind, Rashawn Gary only had 220 run D snaps to Naibari's 196. So it's not like he had a ton more snaps. I mean, he had 9 more run stops in that regard. So I know people showing the tape of him not hustling or whatever. Maybe he's out of gas. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying I want Gary back. I'm not saying Gary is a great player, but this idea that he was a bad football player, there's no stats to show that. There's none. Unless you go with PFF, maybe they go to their pass rush stats. And again, I throw that out the window because that's a trust me, bro stat. These right here, these pressures, these stops, see how my icon changes? I can click on that. I'll show you. You click on that. I got to be careful here. Bang, bang. Let me hit pause. Right? Every single run snap is logged from those plays. Every stop that we just clicked on is right there. Every pressure, we do the same thing with pressures. All of that's right there. PFF says he actually had this many pressures. Really? Which snaps? We don't have time to show you that. Can't get on board with that, man. Can't do it. Sorry. So that's how I feel about Gary. It wasn't ideal. There's no doubt about that, Mike. But to pretend like Gary was horrible this season, I can't get on board with it, man. Can't do it. Not good enough. Completely agree. Right. Keyshawn, undrafted free agent. What are we expecting? You know, he got paid $6 million last year. We expect him to play like a $20 million corner. You know what I mean? Some of it's got to fall on Half a little bit. And again, I think Halfley's a great coach. I hope we get him back. And we're going to talk about that. We ran out of time because of super chats here. Obviously, I just want to I don't want to just give you guys a hot button take and say, or a hot take and say, you're wrong, I'm right. I'm not even saying that. Even after looking at the numbers, Mike, if you disagree and the majority of people disagree, that's cool, man. We can agree to disagree. I'm not the grand poobah over here. We're just talking ball, right? But I never want to be that person that just goes, oh God, you don't know what you're talking about. Be condescending and move on to the next topic. I want to give you, this is my perspective. This is where I'm coming from with that information. That makes sense. Mike Witt with another super. Appreciate you, man. The second to last play, Clayton to Watson. If that O-line holds up just a few seconds more, I think Jordan connects with Christian for the game winner. The other one too, Mike, the Jaden Reed one, right? Like that, man, if they connect on that line route. And I seen people raking Bird over the coals, raking Jaden Reed over the coals for dropping that. He should have caught it. There's no doubt about it. Jaden Reed's come out and said he could have caught it. But also that ball was he's running full speed, climb, got right in his hip pocket, and he has to kind of turn back just a touch. That's not an easy catch to make. You should still catch that. You know who I thought of immediately right there who catches that ball? Is Luke Musgrave. You're going, what are you talking about? Luke Musgrave didn't have a great year. No, but you know what Luke Musgrave would have done? He would have made sure he caught that ball and fell down, right? Jaden Reed is trying to make an awkward catch and get turned back around to get upfield. If we're going to dog Musgrave for falling down like a baby fawn every time he catches the ball, then we got to dog Jaden Reed for focusing a little too much on trying to catch the ball and run upfield, right? There's pros and cons of both. As soon as that happened, I went, Musgrave catches that ball. Now, the fan base is probably raking him over the coals because he catches it and goes to the ground, but he probably catches that ball, right? And you're kind of comparing apples to oranges with tight ends and wide receivers. But, if the O-line holds up just a few seconds, Jordan connects on that. For the game winner, as it was really close, just my opinion. I agree, Mike. If you're talking about the one that Jordan, he puts it in the bucket, right? In between like four defenders, and Christian kind of gets one hand on it. Guess what Christian said? Yeah, I wish I would have played through that a little bit more, right? Because he catches that. Someone else on Twitter said that's the Terrell Owens catch against the Packers with the 49ers back in the 90s, right? In the playoffs. It's true. Catch that, secure it, get banged into the end zone, game winner. All of a sudden, Matt LaFleur isn't on the hot seat, right? It's that close. The offensive line holds up. Maybe you're talking about another play too, Mike, because there was a couple plays where the offensive line crumbled and he couldn't get the ball to Christian. That you might actually be talking about a separate play. I apologize. I'm just giving another example of him having to step into pressure, right? You got to get the O-line fixed. I don't see how you bring back Coach Buckus. I just don't see it. And who knows? Maybe Steno's gone too, but you guys know I've been very vocal. It's why I keep getting irritated with this. If they're being cheap with Matt LaFleur's money, or it's about the structure change and this and that, you should have had that decision made weeks ago if you wanted to change the structure. And you could have negotiated with Goody at any point. So I'm more pissed off that Ed Policy has drug his feet on that, if that is what's holding it up, which Rob Domofsky kind of talked about a little bit, right? And again, yeah, you guys listen to Rob Domofsky's content. Go read his articles to get his full opinion. I'm just kind of reacting on what he said on an interview. But if that's what's holding this whole thing up, then this is on Ed Policy. It looks really, really bad. And if all that's being held up, that's what's holding us up from potentially interviewing Mike McDaniel to be our OC. I would hire Mike McDaniel as your OC, make him your run game coordinator, demote Adam Stenovich to offensive line coach, and thank you for your service, Coach Buckus. And if there's an aspect of what he does that you like, keep him on staff as an assistant. If he doesn't get an offer somewhere else, I'm okay with that. But you better get somebody in there to fix the freaking offensive line room, man. You got to fix it because we're spending money there. We're spending draft picks there. Second-round pick Anthony Belton graded out in the 40s, according to PFF. Now, let's say, Clayton, it wasn't that bad. Well, what would you grade him then? Did you think he was elite? I don't think anybody thinks he was elite. I don't think anybody thinks he was very good. I think best case scenario, he was kind of an average offensive lineman as a rookie second-round pick. Is that where we've gotten now? Our second-round picks are going to play average? Because I'll tell you this, Adrian Cooper last year's second-round pick was a home run. I think we would all agree, right? Javon Bullard took a second-year step. Maybe we see that from Anthony Belton this year. I hope so. That would be great. But you're dragging your feet with this whole Matt LaFleur thing. And now we know the large majority of the fan base wants Matt LaFleur back. So that idea is out the window that everybody wants him gone. We've kind of debunked that. It's the loud minority saying that. So that's a problem too that I have. That's the main problem I have with the situation I'm most irritated with. If you don't want – Adam Schefter said it right. And I don't agree with 90% of what Adam Schefter talks about, tweets, and looks at the game. It's a great insider, don't get me wrong. I'm trying to look at it from the X's and O's standpoint and, what do coaches think, what do executives think as opposed to media members who want clicks, right? That's the name of their business. But he said, if I'm Matt LaFleur, if you don't want to pay me, then let me go. I'm more on board with that than dragging your feet through this whole thing because you're hurting the team the longer it drags out. trying to figure out the structure. That stuff should have been done, man. That should have been done. That's the will to prepare right there. If you ain't got that, you're going to get your butt kicked in any endeavor. But thank you, Mike. Appreciate you, man. Chester with the super chat. Thank you, Chester. He says, IIRC. Maybe he's saying Irk. We had 2 or more undrafted free agents in the defensive backfield for most of the year. That's a big GM red flag. It's a great point. That's a great point. I'll tell you another one that's tough too is, the final roster cuts and everything. That is when you cut down to the 53, that's the position coaches coming to the head coach and going, here's my 5, here's my 3, here's my 4 that I want in my room on the 53, right? They make their case for their guys. Matt LaFleur takes that information and goes, okay, collectively, based off all this information we've gotten from all the position coaches, here's the 53 guys I want on my roster. And he takes it to Goody, and then Goody makes the final decision on whether or not you keep those players. You guys remember roster cuts? When we were talking roster cuts, there was a guy that I loved. It was Micah Robinson. From the day that Micah Robinson was drafted, I thought we might have actually done, he might have been a top 30 visit too. I'm not 100% sure, but we did a prospect breakdown on our Patreon page. You can go to Patreon and search for it and find it. It tells his entire life story. When the Packers draft somebody, we put together an extensive thing that shows here's where he grew up. Here's what he did in high school, a little bit of family background if there's something there. Like, man, they fought through some hardship here. I think that builds the character of a player. How they were recruited into college, what was their ranking coming out of high school, what was their ranking in college, what was their PFF grade in college, all right, where were they drafted or where were they signed at, that type of thing. We do that all breakdown when the Packers sign a player. Micah Robinson was like my dude. I love that guy. Final 53, I thought he did enough in preseason and everything to make the roster. Like, I felt like what we heard in camp, we need this guy on the roster. They decided to move on from him at some point, and he ended up grading out in the 70s, according to PFF. Had a great year somewhere else. So when you say, Chester, we had 2 or more undrafted free agents in the defensive backfield for most of the year, that's a big GM red flag. Not only that, an even huger GM red flag is the fact that Micah Robinson was, I think he was an undrafted free agent too, and you let him walk. So you kept 2 over him that whoever you're talking about potentially played like cheeks, and you had a guy that was a stud that got out of the building. So that's another kind of, and again, I don't want to be too harsh on Goody because GMs miss, man. They miss on players all the time, but I don't know, man. We're out here trying to fire head coaches when we got the youngest roster in the league and undrafted free agents sprinkled in everywhere. It's just that's not a good look. It isn't. So appreciate the Superman. Paige and Dr. Crutch with the super chat. Thank you so much. Is Coop's injury from the Chicago game serious? I have heard no specific details, Dr. Crutch. When I brung it up, because I was really concerned, I had other fans tell me it was just an ankle, not a big deal. I don't know where they got that info. I didn't have time to really climb through all of Twitter. You go to Twitter and type in Edgerrin Cooper injury, you're going to have every Tom, Dick, and Harry talking about, well, it's this, I think it's that, I think it's this, and you don't have any true information. I'll just put it this way, Crutch. I haven't seen any reports or anything substantial that should give us worry about it, right? Now, ankles can be tricky. They can hang around, right? But I think based off the information I have and what I haven't heard, I guess I should say, I think he's going to be fine for next year. Hopefully that's the case, man. Mike Witt with the super. Thank you, buddy. He says, still love your content, Clayton, and I love the page. I still think Matt is a good coach. I just don't know if he'll ever be a great coach. To me, he's Andy Reid before Mahomes. Hope I'm wrong. Go Pack. That's a fair assessment too, Mike, on Andy Reid, right? Like, he was that guy that couldn't get over the hump. And then he goes to Kansas City and he's got Mahomes in his prime, and all of a sudden, boom, right? Everything kind of blows up, right? He went, I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, Andy went there. Andy was there when they drafted Mahomes, right? But the same point applies, what you're saying, Mike, right? Like, Mahomes did make the difference. But the other thing too that goes unnoticed in Kansas City that Andy Reid, I think, gets a lot of credit for. Maybe he should because he made the hire. But Steve Spagnuolo, as the defensive coordinator, man, that defense has carried them through those last 2 Super Bowls, right? Like, that was their strength. Like, the offense was starting to sputter and really, fizzle out. But again, he got the job done. He made the hire for Spags. You guys know Spagnuolo was a coach, I think, head coach at the New York Giants for a little bit. I'm surprised he ain't getting more head coaching interviews, to be honest with you. His defense has been solid the last few years. But I hope you're wrong too, Mike. And I want to be very clear. I want Matt back, but I understand your point there. I think that's very well worded. I think that's I can't prove you wrong on your comment there. I just don't know if he'll ever be great. And we probably got different definitions of great, right? When I think of a great head coach, you got to think of elite, like Hall of Fame caliber, right? And then below that's probably great, and then below that's probably very good. I think Matt is very good and on the cusp of being great. He's a Super Bowl ring away from, whoa, this dude might be one of the best all time. You're going, what are you talking about? Again, 16th all time in winning percentage. If they went on a run next year and won 12 games, he would climb back into top 10 in winning percentage, I'm sure. And if he got a ring in the next 2 to 3 years, yeah, you're going to be going, that's a Hall of Fame coach. What else is on the resume, right? What else does he need on the resume? Well, how does he coach individually? He's got 2 MVPs under his belt. He coached RG3 to a Rookie of the Year. Actually, 3 MVPs under his belt. Aaron Rodgers with 2, Matt Ryan with 1. He was the quarterback coach for Matt Ryan in Atlanta when he won the MVP. He was the quarterback coach when RG3 won Rookie of the Year in Washington years ago. He's won 13 games 3 different times, right? He's been to the playoffs 6 out of the 7 years he's been a head coach. He's now got his next quarterback protege that's playing MVP caliber football in Jordan Love. If he goes and gets a Super Bowl ring, okay, well, he hasn't done it for a long enough period of time. That would be 7, let's say 2 years down the road. That'd be 8 years in, and you're top 10 in winning percentage. If you go on a run, you can climb back in there. What else do you need on the resume to be a Hall of Fame coach? Multiple MVP quarterbacks, not just one guy that carried you. Multiple MVP quarterbacks. If you can accomplish that with Jordan Love now as a head coach, you've done it as an assistant. You have a top 10 winning percentage. You'd have a Super Bowl ring on your hand. Man, I don't know what else there is, So, but like you said, if they come out next year and they miss the playoffs, right? He's going to go down as right? How quickly things can change, man. Winning solves everything, right? I hope you're wrong there too, Mike. I'm glad you prefaced it with that too, because some people, that's the problem too, is there's some fans. We got to wrap this up soon, man. My voice is going. I can't believe we've been going an hour. You guys are awesome. Thank y'all for hopping in here and talking ball. Some portion of the fans, they try to paint a picture like the guy's horrible, and others, will a very, very minute amount of fans will say he's elite. I don't think either of those are true. And I think you could say that for a lot of coaches, right? A lot of players too. Like Mike McCarthy used to say all the time, and I agree with it completely. He would say there are no bad football players in the league. There's good players and there's great players. And sometimes the difference between good and great is how they're used. The pieces around them, the players around them, making them look better. The scheme really, really highlighting what they do well, right? And I think there's some really very good players, maybe even great players that didn't get noticed because they wasn't utilized proper, right? That's it goes both ways. So, and last one from Mike Witt. We'll get ready to wrap up. He says, super chat. Thank you, Mike. Last point, we better have a new kicker in training camp. You can tell me he lined up for that last field goal he was going to miss. Man, yeah, it was I had a lot of faith in Brandon McManus going into this year. I ain't going to BS you guys. Now, you guys remember, if you go back, he finished in the 90% field goal percentage last year. And I said, I do not expect that this year, right? I said, I do not expect that. There's no way he's going to finish in the 90 percentile again. Like I'm expecting, give me 85% of his kicks and I'm happy with it. But man, when you miss 3 kicks in the biggest game of the year, that's a tough look. I'm going to try here real quick just to see how he finished. People go, Clayton, you're going to talk yourself into him again. I'm not, okay? But we're going to try to go to the 2025 kicking stats, and I just want to see where he ranks, okay, in field goal percentage. And that, again, I like percentages. I don't like the overall numbers, right? So Nick Folk, was he in this? Is this the 2025 season? I'm assuming it is. Yeah, 2025 season. So Nick Folk kicked again this year. He kicked for the Jets. His field goal percentage was 96.6%. Eddie Pinheiro with the San Francisco 49ers, it looks like. I think that's San Fran. 96.6 as well. They played, and that's a lot of kicks too. I mean, you're talking about 29 attempts for both of those guys, right? Will Reichert, 94.3 for Minnesota. Riley Patterson for Miami, 93.1. Spencer Schrader from Indianapolis, 92.9. Cameron Dicker, 92.7. So where's our boy at? Where is our boy? That's the question. So those are kind of the dominants. Then it talks about the league average, essentially. So the league average is 85.6. So, again, I said if he gives me 85%, I'd be happy with it, right? Brandon McManus on the year, 80%. He was 29th best in the league, field goal percentage. That's a tough look, boys. It's a tough look. Again, this isn't saying we shouldn't have brung him in this year. I don't know anybody at the beginning of the year was going, Brandon McManus ain't the guy. I think it kind of surprised us all a little bit, but I was definitely one of those dudes that had a lot of faith in him. So that's not a good look. And believe me, I got to hear it every day from my wife. The day that they let Haversick go, they said, why do we let go of the substitute teacher? That's what she says. I'm like, baby, Brandon McManus is a better kicker. And I still believe he is, to be honest with you. I don't know if Haversick is as good as that little. So, I mean, we gave him a shot, right? And he crapped the bed too. So it's not like, but anyway. As soon as McManus missed that first extra point, I think it was the first kick he missed in the game against the Bears. I walked downstairs to use the restroom, and as I was walking into the bathroom, my wife on the couch watching the game downstairs, right with the dogs, she says, "Should have kept the substitute teacher." I know you guys have heard this story. If there's new people in here, that's what. When you hear me talk about the substitute teacher, it's because my wife's giving me hell over Brandon McManus. So, anyway, thank you for reminding me of that. I appreciate you, bub. So, yeah, that's it, guys. Again, I didn't want to go this long. We'll come back here in a little bit, and we'll talk about – that'll actually give a little time for the dust to settle on the coaching carousel. Obviously, the big news we were going to talk about was John Harbaugh signing or agreeing to terms in New York this morning with the Giants. That's going to start to have some dominoes fall into place. What will that mean for Jeff Hafley? DeMarcus Covington's getting a little bit of interest as well as DC, so we might potentially lose him. I haven't heard Ansley's name mentioned before I went live. Maybe that's changed, but we're going to go kind of dive into all of the coaching carousel a little bit later in the day and kind of see which things are going to be falling into place here, if that makes sense. So that's what's on tap a little later today. I'm just combing through the NFL news to make sure nothing broke while we were in here. Just the new Washington Stadium renderings are coming out. Lions requested an interview with offensive coordinator candidate Arthur Smith. So the Lions have interviewed several people or have set up several interviews, right? 1 hour ago, the Giants tweeted out an emoji of a emoji like that. What is that about, guys? Any idea what that means? That's really crazy. Huh. What did that emoji mean, I wonder? Other than interaction, let's see here. Ian Rappaport retweeted it. Okay, I think it was more of a smirk, like, yeah, that's right, we got John Harbaugh. I think that's what that was. So anyway, big nothing burger there. So again, thanks to everybody with the super chats. Mike Witt, appreciate you, buddy. Regil, appreciate you. Crutch, thank you so much. Like I said, Mike with a bunch of super chats. Appreciate you. Everybody in the chat, thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Yeah, we'll try to be more involved with the chat a little bit later. As we go live, we get some other hosts in here with me. So thank y'all so much for hanging out. If you would do me a favor, hit that like, hit that subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss future live streams. We'll be back a little later today as news breaks and as everything kind of unfolds with the coaching carousel. So appreciate y'all. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack Go.
There we go. We're out.
Bye, guys.